What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Talk Sports with Jake. Hope we're doing well. So, very special episode today, a little quick thing that we're doing. Very special guest today. Welcome back, Professor Paul Pabst.
Jake, good to be with you, man.
Thank you. Thank you for doing this. Just a little refresher. Paul Pabst here. He is the executive producer of the Dan Patrick Show, a very popular sports radio program. I assume you all have heard of it.
I hope they have.
I would think so.
That would hurt my feelings if they did.
It's been around for quite a while.
Yeah, so have I.
It's been around for quite a while. They are very well known. So, Professor Pabst and I have to come and talk a little bit of baseball with me today. So, Professor Pabst, we got the World Series starting tonight, Game 1, Yankees and Dodgers. And I first wanted to ask you, so obviously we got two very big names, obviously New York versus LA. Do you think it's better for the league to have, like two teams with huge payrolls, with a lot of big names, compared to like something like last year, like Texas Rangers against Arizona Diamondbacks, like some lower market teams? Do you think this is better for the game?
I don't think you could have designed a better World Series for baseball. We had Rob Manfred at the Dan Patrick Show the other day, the commissioner, and he basically said, he goes, once in a while I catch a break. And if you think about it, the Dodgers versus the Yankees fulfills everything you need in a World Series. It gets the old timers who remember the Dodgers-Yankees from the 70s. And then it gets the new fans who like Shohei Ohtani or Aaron Judge. There's storylines, there's history, there's huge markets of Los Angeles and New York, which are the biggest. And so if I were designing a World Series to get the most ratings, there's not an underdog. There's not a feel-good story like the Diamondbacks. You don't have that, but you have two, I guess, baseball heavyweights. They spend a lot of money. They have a lot of money. But if you look at it, the Yankees haven't been in the World Series since, what, 09?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a long time for the Yankees. It's almost embarrassing with what they spend. But if I'm designing a World Series, I want Shohei Ohtani in it because that's a worldwide audience.
And also, obviously, on the other side, you have Aaron Judge. You have the two big guys in.
Yeah.
And you got Juan Soto. There's so many stars on both teams.
Yeah.
On both ends. From a fan perspective, there's been a lot of fans who are not thrilled with the World Series. As an overall fan perspective, do you think fans should prefer a World Series like this? Do you think it's a better viewing experience from a fan perspective?
I guess I think if you don't have a dog in the fight, my Cubs aren't in, so what can I do about it? I want a 7-game World Series. That's what I always want. I don't care. I don't really care too much who's in it. I prefer a team that's never won it before to be in it. Like, I wanted the Cleveland Guardians, that used to be the Cleveland Indians, in it, because then they have a chance to not break a curse, but I think the last time they won it was 1940.
48 or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. And so that's kind of, you'd want them in it, or you'd want like a Milwaukee Brewers or a Seattle Mariners, like a new, fresh story. You don't have that this year, but I think it's a heavyweight title fight. It's like the Golden State Warriors versus the Cleveland Cavaliers a few years ago in basketball. You had LeBron versus Steph, and I think that plays to a lot of fans.
Definitely, yeah. And it's weird. Yeah, you have some fans who it seems like they're almost split. There are some fans who are like, when the championship series started, were the Cleveland Guardians against the New York Mets, and obviously as a Mets fan, obviously I of course was rooting for the Mets.
Sure.
Obviously that didn't quite work out, but it's definitely for baseball, Dodgers, Yankees, you can't get much better than that. New York, LA, two of the three biggest payrolls. I think it goes Mets, Yankees, Dodgers. Maybe Yankees, Dodgers are flipped. We just touched on stars on both sides. So, but I was a little more curious from like the fan perspective. But I do think, like you said, you want a 7-game World Series. I just want a good series.
So I'm watching the World Series tonight, and tonight's Friday night. I don't know when this podcast is going to air, but this is Friday before the World Series.
Yeah.
I love the World Series, and I think it's almost like an obligation as a sports fan to watch it. I'm going to sit down tonight and watch every inning. And I know there's some college football on, but I'm not going to watch it. It's like, you almost owe it to baseball to watch the World Series. If you can't watch the World Series, then don't watch it when your team's in. Like if I'm a Cubs fan, I'm sure most people watch the 2016 World Series because it was Cubs-Indians. But I'd be a hypocrite if I didn't watch this World Series because I'm an old school baseball fan. I just want to see drama. I just want to see 7 games.
Absolutely. And 2016 World Series was great because you had, not only was it you had two really good teams, or two of the best teams in the league. You had two teams that hadn't won in forever. Cleveland still hasn't won since what? We just touched on 1948. The Cubs ain't won since what? 1906 or whatever
1908, I think.
1908, 108 years. Like that's crazy. You got people, once in a while you hear on the news, so and so lives to 102, and they still didn't see one.
My grandmother died at 96, and she didn't see the Cubs win a World Series. Oh. She's a Cubs fan. She died in 2014. She missed it by 2 years, but I'm a lifelong Cubs fan, mostly because of my grandmother and my grandfather. And when the Cubs made the playoffs that year in 2016, when they made the playoffs, I looked at the schedule, and I knew that the Cubs would be the away team, I think, for the World Series, if they made the World Series. So that means games 3, 4, and 5 would be in Chicago. So I did the math, went on a website, I think United, and bought a plane ticket to Chicago for games 3, 4, and 5 of the World Series that I didn't know if they would be in. Wow. But it was like $225. I'm like, all right, I'm a Cubs fan. I'm going to fly back. I don't have tickets either at this point for the World Series. Plus, the Cubs hadn't even advanced to the second round of the playoffs yet. But I was trying to be anticipatory and say to myself, if the Cubs make the World Series, I have to be in the city of Chicago where I'm from. So they win, they beat the Dodgers, they go to the World Series, and I've got a plane ticket. And it's only cost me like $220. Now the plane tickets are $600 because everyone's flying in to Wrigley Field. And I was able to get a credential for games 3, 4, and 5. And games 3 and 4, the Cubs lost, and it was like they were
down 3-1. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like a morgue walking out of game 4. You walked outside, and Cubs fans were like quiet, and also they've been drinking all night, so it was like quiet and angry. And then they made the comeback, and everyone knows what happened there. But it was a great move, and I think to see your team in a World Series game, win or lose, is one of the great days of a sports fan's life.
Absolutely. In 2015, the Mets were in the World Series. They lost to the Kansas City Royals. I went to one of the games. I believe my dad. I went with my dad. I think he's got a friend he's like he's very connected.
Yeah, he is.
So he somehow got a hold of a couple of tickets. His friend lives in Florida. My dad lives there now, but at the time he was still in New York, and he obviously knew he wasn't gonna be able to make it because he didn't have a dog in the fight.
So what happens? Your dad calls you and said, "I got 2 tickets for the Mets World Series."
Basically, yeah. So and then so we went to game. It was at City, game 4, because they dropped the 2 in Kansas City, and then they won game 3 at home, and then game 4 it was tough. That was the game where Dana Murphy made that made that error when double play. They brought Joyce Million in the 8th inning, but it was still just an incredible experience.
Yeah, it's great to be there. You can't control whether they win or not, but you could be in the building and see it.
It just was like the atmosphere. In 2015, that was 9 years ago, so I was 13.
Don't rub it in. Don't rub it in.
So I was quite young. I was probably like middle school.
Wow.
So and I had been to a few baseball games. Actually, I'd been to a bunch. My dad used to go to baseball games all the time.
Okay.
So I knew about the atmosphere. But that was my first playoff game in any sport.
Wow.
That I had been in. So just
set the bar high.
So I was like, wow, is this what playoff atmosphere is like? This is incredible. To me, baseball. I'm not sure if they have the best playoff, but they have the best, to me, atmosphere in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think the reason baseball's playoffs are so great is because there's no clock. Yeah. And because there's no clock, a comeback can happen. All the team has to do is do it. In football or in basketball, you can kind of run out of time. Exactly. And there's just nothing you could do about it. If you're down, 21-3 at half in football, the time is, you're staring at it. But if you're down 5-0 in the second inning of a Major League Baseball game, it's like, okay, get 2, and then it's the 8th inning and we're down 1. It's like, because there's no clock in baseball, there's a pitching clock, but no real clock. There's always the chance for a comeback. It's harder, I think, comeback in that sport, but it's the drama's there. And because there's pauses between every pitch, and you change out the pitcher, and it's like a movie sometimes.
Absolutely. And like you said, in basketball, if you're down 20 with 2 minutes left,
it's basically over.
The game is over. In hockey, if you're down 3 goals last couple minutes, pretty much over. In football, if you're down,
if you're down 2 scores with 2 minutes left and the other team has the ball, all they got to do is really get a first down, and then they're taking a knee.
And taking a knee in the game.
There's no knee in baseball.
Yeah, in baseball, obviously, all right. If you're down 3 runs, let's see. If you're down 5 runs going to the 8th, yes, all right. You only have 6 outs left, but if you don't get out, you just keep chipping away.
Yeah, but if you get 2 men on in the bottom of the 9th and you're down 3, you're like one swing, which is like, and everyone changes their tone really quickly.
So basically, like in football, you could execute perfectly down a bunch but run out of time. In baseball, if you execute, you can pull it off.
Yep. Yeah, I never play baseball, but man, I wish I would have. And that's when you watch playoff games, Sometimes I'm scared to turn them off because I got to hit the sack, got to get up early for the Dan Patrick Show. But I'm like, I wish there was a warning on my TV. Like, let's say I turn the TV off, and all of a sudden, let's say it's Mets versus Cardinals or some playoff game, and the other team makes a big comeback. I wish my TV would just pop on. We got to create an app. You're a pretty smart guy. Why don't you create?
Maybe.
We got to create an app that if you go to bed, your TV pops on and says, "Hey, dude, wake up! There's a great ending coming."
That would be awesome. And then I would change sports media.
Oh, we would be billionaires.
Oh my God! There's been some great inventions in sports media, Barstool, ESPN, but that might top them all.
That would be good. Hey, I got to run. I got to go home. I actually have to see some kids, but it was great being on your podcast. And your Mets are going to be fine.
Yeah.
Think of where you were 2 years ago. You
Absolutely.
were distraught. You spent a lot of money. Not you, but your owner. But things are better. I don't think you're going to sign Pete Alonso, but don't worry. You're going to be great next year.
Absolutely. Professor Pabst, thank you so much, and let's do this again soon.
Anytime, little brother.